everyone, to the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. Appreciate you joining me as always. Of course, the show is brought to you by the good folks over at Crossover Meats. You can check them out at crossovermeats.com. We've got a great show coming up for you. I kind of think each show each week is a great show. But today, here on WOL, it's even better because it's no longer 30 minutes. We're going to be on for an hour today, folks, and I've got some great guests joining us throughout the show. I have Gabe Taylor, the younger brother of Sean Taylor, Washington Redskins great. His younger brother will be joining us shortly, and we'll get his take on, what it was like for him to be out at Washington Commanders rookie minicamp, and he was over there over the weekend. I was out there as well, so we'll get a chance to talk about that, and I'll also give you some insight as far as the other rookies and how they performed and how they looked during the Commanders rookie minicamp. And then coming up a little bit later on, we're going to have former Washington Redskins starting wide receiver Anthony Armstrong. He's going to come on with us, and I'll get his take too. And I'm also going to talk to him about something that's not football related, just for a couple minutes, a little fodder, a little fun we're going to have there. But if you would like to join us as well and you want to call into the station, all you have to do is call 1-800-450-7876. So once again, 1-800-450-7876. We've got so much going on in the area right now, and this is why I love having a Commander-centric show with me covering them and the NFL as an insider. This is why I love covering football, because if you were a basketball fan, you were heartbroken yesterday if you were a Wizards fan, because they got the sixth pick as far as the lottery. The sixth pick, folks, we're talking about one of the worst teams in the NBA trying to get better, trying to rebuild their brand, and they get the sixth pick. So wishful thinking on that. And then if you're an NHL fan, the Washington Capitals lose, and they're down 3-1 in their series against the Carolina Hurricanes in the NHL playoffs. And then the Nationals, oh, by the way, they lost last night as well. So it was just a bad day for DC sports. But in general, we're going to brighten it up for you, because if you're a Washington Commanders fan, which this show talks about, you should be on cloud nine, because they're getting a lot of love around the country. Right now, the Washington Commanders, to me, have become the NFL's new baby, the new toy in town. And it naturally starts. I've said this on my own show a couple weeks back, that I had to get my passport ready. Well, we know why now, because we're going to be going over to Madrid, Spain. I'm looking forward to that. And we've already got someone on the line with us right now. So right now, we're going to bring in our caller. How are you? All right, so not on yet, so we're waiting for them. But yeah, if you are a Commanders fan, this is great times, because think about it, going to Madrid, Spain, first time ever the NFL is playing over there, and they pick Washington. They have them and the Dolphins. So how can you not like that? That's an awesome, awesome setup to think about the Commanders going overseas. And then I also heard through the grapevine that, maybe kind of early breaking this, but I heard we're going to be doing the same thing next year, going back to France. So you don't think the Jaden Daniels effect made a big move on this team? Of course it did. And the NFL right now is trying to market that, and they're trying to do everything they can to keep Washington at the top of the heap. This is good for you if you're a Commanders fan, because now your team is front and center in the news. So there's no more hiding. They are who they are now. So now there's no more hiding if this team's going to be one of the best teams in the NFL. I think the expectation is that it will be one of the best teams in the NFL. So, yes, we're going to get ready to bring in one of our callers here in a second. So right now, listen, if you would like to subscribe to this podcast as we get situated here in studio, all you have to do, it's easy, folks. All you have to do is go to the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. All you have to do is pull that up on all the major podcast carriers. Also, you can watch this show on YouTube on the Lake Lewis Jr. Show channel on YouTube. And then, of course, right here on WOL. If you're out there right now, be safe outside. It's raining. It's really hectic weather here in the D.C. area, but it's not hectic if you are a Commanders fan. And last week, we told you that you guys could come on the show and we'll give you some more hypotheticals. And a lot of people have been asking about those hypotheticals, like what's so good about those? Well, they're brain busters. And that's something that we do on our Friday show as well, where we bring in fans from all over the world, all over the country to join us. And we'll be doing that again this Friday. Rookie minicamp was over the weekend. And I have to tell you, I was impressed. I like what I saw. I think that this is a young team as far as some of the younger players that really will blend in well with the veterans on this football team. We all know about Jaden Daniels and the meteoric rise that he had last year as a rookie. But there are other players, Jerzon Newton last year, defensive lineman, had a really good rookie campaign. Mikey Sanderstill, a cornerback from Michigan, had a really, really good rookie campaign. Brandon Coleman, offensive lineman, had a really good rookie campaign. So when I was there this past weekend, I wanted to see what was the difference between last year's rookie class and this year's rookie class as far as those first days of rookie minicamp. And I got to tell you, this year's class, the first thing that jumped off the board to me was speed and athleticism. Not saying that last year's group didn't have it, because clearly they did. They were great. There might be one of the better rookie classes that Washington potentially could have ever had. Well, this class coming in, although it was only 5 picks, those guys showed me a lot just in drills and basic stuff. When you look at Josh Connerly Jr., the tackle that they took from Oregon with their first pick, look, this guy's a big, big kid. And I say kid, I can't say man yet because he's still a baby. He's still young. But this guy has size, agility, strength in his hands, strength in his base. I literally think he's going to be the starting right tackle for this team come the first game of the season. I think he's that talented. And I think that by all intentions, they want him to be that. They want him to become that so they can move Brandon Coleman inside to be more of a natural guard. I looked at Trey Amos, and had a chance to speak with him as well. The confidence is there, and that's what you want from a cornerback. You want your corners to be a little brash, have a little swag about them, and I got to tell you, this guy has it all, and he's got size. So to me, he's a little bit of a bigger version of Marshawn Lattimore, who on the other side is a Pro Bowl cornerback, and I think you're going to see Pro Bowl play from Marshawn this year. So for Washington, those first 2 picks were great, but you know what? It didn't fall off after that because I think Jalen Lane, I think the receiver that they took from Virginia Tech, he's a speedster, 4'3" guy, and he's got some size on him too. So he's not just like a small 4'3" speed guy that you have to worry about if he's going to take a hit or two. No, he's got some size on him. He had some muscle on him. So you think about the ways that they can use him as a Swiss Army knife, kind of in the Deebo Samuel mode. Oh, by the way, Deebo Samuel's on the team, so he's going to learn from one of the best. Everything that they're doing out there now makes sense. Everything is a plan. Everything is predicated on success, and that's what I'm seeing with these guys. Kane Medrano, linebacker from UCLA, real personable guy. I was joking with him about the Big Ten and how they're going to give him a lot of crap in the locker room because he's from UCLA, and Big Ten is Michigan, my school, Penn State, I'm alum, and then of course Ohio State. We run that, but Oregon, yeah, they're in the mix too. So we joked about that, but at the end of the day, he understands that he's coming in to compete. He said that he's going to give the team everything he has, and he's a versatile player. So it's going to be interesting to see how they indoctrinate him into their defense. But his athleticism and raw talent is there. And then, of course, the final pick for them, that was in the 7th round. And most of the time, let's face it, when we're talking about 7th rounders in the NFL, we're not talking about guys that you should really think are going to add much, at least in their first year, their rookie campaign. Wrong. Not this year. I think Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, running back out of Arizona, via transfer from New Mexico, via transfer from Alabama State. This guy's a burner. He's got some speed. He's got some wiggle. He's got a cutback ability that I think in Cliff Kingsbury's offense will open up things even more for Jaden Daniels to get to now his other targets on the outside. So I'm excited about this draft class. I gave them an A- grade overall. And the only reason I put the minus on that A was because they only had 5 picks. I mean, they traded some of those picks away to bring in the likes of last year of Marshawn Lattimore. Also, Laramie Tunsil, Pro Bowl left tackle, they traded for one of those picks to bring in this year. And then, of course, Pro Bowl wide receiver Deebo Samuel. So those were the other 3 picks. But if you put that whole thing together, how about we just say Washington's offseason so far is an A+. That's how strong I believe in what is going on there. So we're going to have plenty of time because today, folks, it's an hour-long show. Yes, it's an hour-long show, and excited about that. No longer 30 minutes where we're just getting rolling and then we have to get off the air, so we have additional time for you. Appreciate all the good folks here at WOL for making that happen. Sheldon Chandler in particular, I got to shout him out. He showed me a lot of love, and we're getting this thing done. So, look, we've got a call on the line right now. Hey, Gabe, how are you?
Good, yourself.
Look, I got to tell you, what I saw out there this past weekend, I was impressed. I was impressed with the speed. I was impressed with everything that you were doing out there. So my question to you is, how did it feel for you to be out there, obviously wearing the burgundy and gold, knowing that your brother, the late, great Sean Taylor, was formerly here with this team? All right, yeah, so we'll get back to that. But, yeah, Gabe Taylor was out there, and, he came from Rice. He's a rising young player, and I know the team really wanted him here, so they gave him a rookie invite, a tryout. So I'm not sure if they've extended him or not, but I do think that this guy definitely is carving out his own niche. Obviously, we know who his brother is, a legend in this town, but I think Gabe is definitely an NFL caliber football player. So it's going to be interesting to see how Washington handles things. I do know for a fact that they liked what they saw. I'm not sure, again, enough to give out a contract. But at the end of the day, this is a player that I think we just need to start calling Gabe Taylor and not always lumping him to his brother. We understand why. But I do think he's a really good football player, and I was impressed with his speed out there. And they had him doing different things. Naturally, he was a safety in college, but I thought I saw with my own eyes him doing a little bit of corner work as well. So I do think that this guy is capable of doing all of the above. And let's see if we have Gabe back with us. Gabe, are you there with us? Okay. All right. So, yeah, we're figuring that out. I can't really hear him now. But, yeah, and again, this was one of those guys that, a lot of people didn't talk about as far as their 5 picks because he wasn't one of their 5 picks, but he was a guy that naturally drew a crowd with the media. He's another guy that, a lot of people feel really high on, felt really good on. Okay. I think we have him back now. Gabe, are you there with us?
I'm here.
Yeah, there we go. All righty. Yeah. So, again, you and I, we talked. We spoke before you came in, and I know you had some other offers, some other opportunities. Why was it so important for you to come to Washington? What was it, obviously, that really made your heart want to try out for the Commanders?
To mostly prove myself. This was I guess you could say, the hardest route to take. So to come in and prove myself that I can play with everybody, that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, and you said it was the hardest route. I mean, you naturally there was a lot of weight on your shoulders, and I totally respect you for making that decision. You put on the colors that your brother had on, and I was asking you earlier, we couldn't really get your feedback on that. But what was it like? I mean, just to put that helmet on, to put those colors on, knowing your brother wreaked havoc when he was here, roaming those halls.
It felt good for a moment, but then once I stepped in between those lines, is just what I had to focus on and make sure I did my job and compete at a high level.
Now,
get a spot on the team.
A couple of us were mentioning how fast you look. I knew you were fast, but I didn't know you were that fast. Is that a part of your game that you think sometimes people don't understand, that you really do have an elite speed?
Yeah, whatever they say at the pro day numbers, it's more faster in person. It's all instincts whenever I kicked in and just play off the ball, and it's all reacting.
So let me ask you, Gabe, do you feel like, you were a safety in college at Rice, excelled there, from a size standpoint, you also are a guy that could probably cover some guys, on the outside or maybe even in the slot, for any team that's going to bring you on in the NFL, do you feel like you have a set position, or do you feel like you're capable of playing multiple positions?
I'm very versatile. Like I said, over and over again. The film speaks for itself. Playing deep pass, middle third, guard the slot, playing the box. So I'm not really a person that you can just put in one position.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. As far as the feedback you got from the team, because I know, they had you come in for a rookie tryout. Like I said, I thought you did very well, and I know some of my colleagues, reported the same thing. Have you gotten any feedback on the next step, or if they're going to wait for, before they can bring you back, or have you had any feedback?
Yeah. Right now I'm on a short list. There's nothing possible. There's nothing that I could have did anything better. Everybody said it great. They played one of my reps in team meetings, so
nice.
I was a fast learner. I literally had all the reps. On the first day, I came out like one time or three times. I only had three. I literally played the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
That second day, so there's nothing I could have did better. So
nice, and I know that's what I saw, and I'm not blowing smoke here, folks. We're talking with Gabe Taylor, the younger brother of the late great Sean Taylor, who's, as I said earlier, is carving out his own niche. He's a really good football player, not just Sean's younger brother. He's his own man. He's his own player. And again, I was really impressed with what I saw on Saturday. Is there anything going forward that you can take away from rookie minicamp that you feel like maybe you can work on to get even better? Okay, I think.
For me, that's that's a kind of a difficult question for me right there, just because I'm more of a coachable guy, but just to make sure I just study and work out.
Right, stay in shape, right? That's the most important thing. I saw your father when I was leaving the facility, and I hadn't seen Pete in a long time, and it was good to see him and good to catch up with him. And it was just, they were so excited. He and your mom, they were so excited, as for you to be there. And I think a lot of us were, who actually covered your brother. It was really nice to see you there. The last time you were there at the facility that I remember, you were a baby almost. So to see you as this grown man out there running around, it brought back some really nice memories. And also wanted to tell you too that you've got some great representation. I know your agent, and I know the people that represent you, and they're first class individuals. So listen, my friend, you're going to be okay, man. And I truly feel like you're going to be back here. So, I know you impressed. You said they told you the same thing. I know we said the same thing ourselves in the media, that you're impressed. So keep your head up and know that, God has a plan for everything, and you're right where you need to be at this moment right now. So keep your feet underneath you. But I think we're going to be having this conversation again real soon here in D.C.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate you coming on. All right, folks. Look, that was Gabe Taylor joining us. And sorry as far as the technical stuff, but we worked through it. That's what we do. That's what you have to do in radio. Remember, coming up a little bit later on, I'm going to have Anthony Armstrong joining us. And, before we get to that, I do want to open up the phone line. So if anyone wants to call in, they can do so at 1-800-450-7876. So once again, 1-800-450-7876. When we were talking about this rookie class, we're talking about all these players that, it's tough for rookies to come in and crack a lineup of a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. So I think fans have to start understanding this is a little different now in town, because for years, the hopes were riding on literally on a rookie player to resurrect them, so to speak. Well, now that you're a Super Bowl contender, it's going to be tough for rookies to crack lineups, but I do feel good about that. So, I think that they have an opportunity to truly have some of these young players make a name for themselves from this rookie class. Like I said, we already know about last year's rookie class led by Jaden Daniels, but I do believe that this year's rookie class potentially, could have maybe by week 4, week 5, 3 starters. I think from day one, there's going to be 2 starters out on the field. And I do believe, like I said, I think Josh Connolly Jr. starts at right tackle. I think Trey Amos starts opposite Marshawn Lattimore at corner, and Mikey Sainristil moves into the slot. So there you have 2 starters right there from day one. But I think when you go down to that 7th round and you look at Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I'm telling you, folks, I think this guy will be putting some pressure on Brian Robinson Jr. I do believe that. I know Brian Robinson has the pedigree. He's a really good football player in his own right, but this offense lacked home run capabilities from the backfield. They lacked a guy that you could give the ball to and hold your breath and he could take it to the house. And just think about that. Think about that dynamic in Cliff Kingsbury's offense with Jaden Daniels, throwing the ball now to Adebo Samuel to go along with all-world wide receiver Terry McLaurin. And then you have Zach Ertz underneath. I mean, there's so many things that you can do now. And then think about it. You can also bring in the young kid Jalen Lane with his speed and his game-breaking ability. I just think it makes this offense more potent. The most important thing, though, is the offensive line. I mean, now you're going to be able to give your toys on the outside in the backfield. Obviously, Jaden Daniels, you're going to give them time to let a play matriculate. You're going to give them a chance to let the play develop as opposed to it being rushed. Go back to the NFC Championship game last year against the Philadelphia Eagles. Although the offense was able to move the ball at times, they couldn't sustain drives. And then more importantly, Jaden Daniels literally was wearing that Superman cape, which he did for the better part of last year. I don't think they want Jaden Daniels to have to do that this year. I think they want him to be a guy that you see more from his arm than you do from his leg. Not saying they're going to try to take away his God-given ability to run the football. You don't do that to a special talent. There's a reason why Baltimore still lets Lamar Jackson run when he wants to, because he's great. He's the best in the game at doing it. Well, Jaden Daniels, to me, is the next best at doing that. And I think Washington's going to let him continue to do that. But listen, you want your franchise player to be upright. You want your franchise player to not take unnecessary punishment, unnecessary hits that he doesn't have to take. So therefore, I think that's why there was so much onus put into developing the offense this offseason. A lot of people were upset. I know some of you out there were upset that they didn't take an edge rusher. And, you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, this team has to get after other teams' quarterbacks. Well, you have to make sure first and foremost that your biggest investment, which is Jaden Daniels, you have to make sure that his life is great and that everything on the field is, major comfort level for him. So you obviously shoring up your offensive line and then bringing in some talent on the edges, on the outside, as far as receivers, and then you get some speed in the backfield. That's the stuff that will help a young quarterback. That's the stuff that will help him take his game to the next level. And knowing Jaden the way I do from just being in the locker room with him, that's a competitive young man. When I tell you he's competitive, we joke and he jokes with the other teammates about, is he a better basketball player than anybody in there and a better dresser? I mean, the whole nine. That's him. He's competitive. And it may be friendly chatter, but it's real. And that's why I think this team takes the next step to the next level. Folks, if you would like to call in, we'll give that number out one more time. I saw a couple callers call in. We couldn't get to you while we were doing our interview, but it's 1-800-450-7876. So once again, 1-800-450-7876. A little bit later on today, I think approximately in the next 5 minutes or so, actually, we're going to have Anthony Armstrong join us. He's in Texas right now and, former Washington Redskins starter. He started, for people who don't remember, Anthony Armstrong started opposite Santana Moss, for a couple years. So really, really good guy. One of my favorites. He's like a little brother to me. So we'll have him come on and break down what it was like for him, because people don't remember Anthony wasn't drafted by Washington. He came in as a unrestricted free agent and worked his way up. You know, how many times do you see a guy come in technically off the street and end up being a starter, and not just any old starter, a starter at wide receiver? And this guy started in the Mike Shanahan era. So, yeah, we're not going to go back on that because that was a train wreck. But at the end of the day, this guy was an undrafted guy that came in and earned a starting opportunity for whatever you say about Mike Shanahan, whether you like him or not. He still is a Hall of Fame Super Bowl winning coach. So that's what I mean when I say about Anthony Armstrong and the great work ethic that he showed. And we did a lot of these type of shows together. So when he comes on with us, we'll break down his thoughts on the Commanders, you know, everything that's going on right now. So the other question I wanted to pose to you out there is, how many of you are going to Spain? Because I know I'll be there, but how many of you plan on going to Spain? If you ever wanted to go to Europe, if you ever wanted to make a trip out of anything, now's the time if you are a Commanders fan, because you'll be able to do that. I think some of you are disappointed because the team that they're playing over there, which actually is the home team for that game, the Miami Dolphins, I think some of you were planning on going to Miami, you know, for the game if it was held in Miami. And I understand why, you know, one of the better destinations in the country from a weather standpoint, especially considering it's later in the year. But now that the game is in Spain, how many of you out there plan on going to Spain to see this historic game? It's the first ever game the NFL is ever playing over there, and Washington is on the board to do so. And again, when you're hot, you're hot. When you're not, you're not. And when this team was dreadful and bad, no one wanted anything to do with them. The city didn't want them back in town. They didn't want them having a stadium, none of the above. Well, now look at what a year does. Look at what 2 years of leadership under Josh Harris, the owner, under Adam Peters, the general manager, and Dan Quinn, the coach. Think of everything that's transpired literally over the last year and a half, because we haven't even gotten into the second season yet as far as the regular season. But everything that's happened over the last 2 years literally has changed a morbid franchise into now one of the most talked about franchises in football. You know, when you look at power rankings, I know my power ranking, I had them at a 5. Well, some of my colleagues around the country, you know, I think the average is 6. You know, I'll take that too. So think about that. From 2 years ago, they were probably 32, 31, 30. You know, one of those three at the very bottom of the heap. Now, they're one of the teams that people are talking about have a chance to get to the Super Bowl. And that's why this is an exciting time if you're a Commanders fan, because things have changed. The fortunes have changed. They still have work to do. Make no mistake about it. If they're going to be Philadelphia, there's, you know, they might be a year behind, you know, as far as really winning a Super Bowl. But for them to be in the running for one, I think that tells you what people think about them. So I think we are ready for our next guest. Mr. Anthony Armstrong is getting ready to join us here on the air. So we'll get his take on all this Washington love. And, you know, I'm going to ask him straight up. Is he a little, you know, upset that it wasn't like this when he was here? Because he was one of the fan favorites. So he's okay, because they still show him a lot of love. So let's bring him on now. What's going on, Anthony?
What's happening?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Look, you know, this is one of those days that, you know, I was like, I gotta bring my little brother on to help me out with this, because all this love being shown to the Commanders, to the burgundy and gold right now, you know, I know you still have a big place here in town as far as, you know, the love from the fans. And when you were here for the Legends weekend last year, you know, I had to drag you off the field to leave because you was getting all this love. But my question to you is, do you wish you had some of this when you were here, all this national love?
Man, you know, it would have been great to have the national love, because we would also had the wins, right, to have some on-field success. But I can say I'm glad to be along for the ride now and still be accepted. You know what I mean? Like, shoot, this is exciting. You got to take this thing on the road. It's going to the national, Lake.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like the first game ever. The first game ever the league is having in Spain, and they pick Washington. I mean, that's that tells you what the Jaden Daniels effect is, man. You know, when you have an elite, when you have an elite franchise quarterback, life is good for everybody involved. Do you plan on going to Spain?
You know, I have not looked up flights just yet, but I know that I'm going to get nosy down the line. And I mean, it's far enough in advance where you can plan for it and make the most of it. Hey, Thanksgiving in Spain would be kind of nice.
Yeah, it would. It really would. You know, I had somebody tell me I had to do another show earlier this morning before I came here to the station. And, you know, someone was like, man, you're probably going to have games on Thanksgiving. You might have a game on Christmas. And I don't know if I want that, but you know, people think the fans, Anthony, they think it's great, but as a media person and you as a former player, you didn't want to play on Christmas Day, did you?
I didn't have to play on Christmas Day, fortunately, but I did practice, on Christmas Day and on Thanksgiving. So I've done those. We traveled on Christmas Day. Obviously, you'd rather be around the fam, but what I was thinking though is that just schedule-wise, this is probably one of those last international games that's going to be of the season. So it's kind of like an extra little bye week, I'd say, for the team when you start thinking playoffs and where this team is going to go to. So it could work out strategically that they're going to take this trip this late in the year.
That's a great point, and and then also was through the grapevine was. When I say things, I try not to leak too much stuff, but I was told to get ready for France next year. Get my passport, make sure my passport's ready for that too. So
you need your passport, then I better renew.
Yeah, man, you got to make sure the passports are ready because this team now is high flying. They're going everywhere, and that's what happens overnight. Instantly you have some success and things are going well. Folks, right now I have Mr. Anthony Armstrong, former Washington Redskins starting wide receiver, played under the Mike Shanahan, and I was just singing your praises before you came on, saying because I had Gabe Taylor on earlier, and we're talking.
How's he doing in camp so far?
He looked good. When I was there over the weekend, I was impressed with his speed and his agility. I mean, he looked really good, and I wanted to make it a point to tell him. That we all know who his brother is. You need no introduction. If you're a Redskins or a Commanders fan, everyone knows about Sean Taylor. But I just wanted to make it a point for him to know that he's his own man, and he's a really good, young, talented player. And, they brought him in on a rookie tryout, and they thought he did really well, and he performed well. I know my own eyes. I reported it over the weekend. I thought he did excellent. They haven't extended it, as far as to come back to camp, but they like him, and I think ultimately they will. So I wanted to ask you, because you were a guy that when you came to Washington, you weren't drafted by Washington. You came in as a free agent and did your thing, and you don't find too many free agents that come in, so far down, quote unquote, the depth chart to ascend to being a starter. And on top of that, a starter for a Super Bowl winning Hall of Fame coach. So what was that like? What was that journey like for you?
Man, I tell you, I came in there, and one of the first things I did, I went into the special teams coach's office, and I said, look, I'm going to be on this team, and anything you need me to do, I'll do it, from holding kicks to punting it. And I just went and attacked every single day, studying the playbook, knew all the positions, and just made myself available.
Yeah.
Right? If they needed an X receiver, I went and did X. If they needed a Y or a Z, I went and did that. The part about it is that you have to perform when you get those opportunities, and eventually I just kept turning enough heads, and slowly but surely you start making a connection with your quarterback. That's Donovan at that time, and hey, it's like when you have an attribute or a superpower that other people don't have, and mine was my speed. And so being able to put that on display and answer any challenge that they gave me, that's how I carved out my spot. They tried to test me physically by blocking LaRon Landry, all those plays in one practice, and then I was able to stand up to that.
Wait. They were having you block LaRon Landry like that's insane.
Yeah. Look. So we did an inside run drill. It's generally only tight ends and basically the big guys. Well, this day they had the receivers join in, and it was because in the Shanahan old school they had that insert blocking. So you'd have to either, depending on where the safety went, and that D end. If the D end was all the way on the outside in a wide 9, then I would have to insert in between the tight end and the tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And so the safety would have to relate to that gap. So he'd go all the way up. We'd be nose to nose late
Oh,
at
my
the line of
gosh.
scrimmage. Me at 185 pounds and LaRon Landry at I don't know how big, but
I'm going to say
we were nose to
250.
nose. 250, yeah, for the sake of the story. LaRon Landry up there swole as all get out. And I'm at the point of the block, and it was a very important part. Even they had that zone scheme.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a couple times where my block sprung the running back. Right, he was able to bend it all the way back behind me, and then make it out the backside. But literally, it was about 10, 12 plays. I had 8 of them.
Oh,
They're like, Ant, stay in. And I'm like, what y'all doing? And
they
I'm
was
like,
testing
okay.
you. They were trying to test your toughness and see if you were about it. Like,
Exactly.
is he really gonna, complain about this, or is he gonna do something? And again, look how it worked out. It changed your life.
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to convey to Gabe as well. God has a plan for everything, and be where your feet are, man. You're at the right place at the right time. Everything will take care of itself. So for you, Anthony, when did you feel like you started to see, like, okay, I'm starting to get some attention around here. Maybe I'm turning some heads.
Man, it was honestly, I thought I didn't even make the team, even in the 4th preseason game when they listed my name with like Santana and Clinton of players who weren't going to play.
Man, if you don't dress, you make the
I was
team.
getting cut.
Come on.
Yeah, but literally, my mind was like, I got to keep making plays every single day. I need every single rep.
Got you.
So it truly wasn't until that next day, official start of the season, where they're like, okay, you've made the roster, you're officially on the week. But I don't know, man. I would say it really wasn't until I think I started in week 4.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That when I first started, and it was that game against, I think, Green Bay. We came back home after the game against Philly, and it was like, wow, I'm really up here living this thing. I'm doing it, and it took that long to really start to kind of appreciate it, and then to look back. Took until I turned about 40 to really appreciate the whole journey as a whole.
Nice. Folks, right now I am joined by Mr. Anthony Armstrong, former Washington Redskins starting wide receiver. Remember, today's show is brought to you by Crossover Meats. Real meat made better, packed with protein and full of flavor. Crossover Meats is a healthier twist to the burgers you love. You can find Crossover at Giant and Food Line, or learn more at crossovermeats.com. Anthony, I got to get you one of these burgers, too, by the way. They are phenomenal.
Yeah, I would like you to go ahead and ship some down this way.
Okay.
I haven't eaten lunch yet, so I'm kind of hungry.
Yeah, let me remind me about that, because I'm cutting weight. So, yeah, it's kind of tough to even be talking about food. But, no, Crossover Meats has some great stuff by far. When you go back to your days in say, like, coming into minicamp, and then you had training camp, was there ever a moment in your career where going through that where you questioned yourself at all? Like, do I really belong here? Or did you always know, you just needed that one opportunity to show what you could do?
Man, in college, I felt like I needed just to get in front of the right person.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, if I can just get in front of the right people, then I can, I'll handle the rest. My game will handle the rest. That was when I ran a 4.2, and I was in front of some scouts and started turning some heads. But like when I lined up in training camps, and I'm looking across from like Joey Porter and Will Allen and D'Angelo Hall, it kind of imposter syndrome jumped in. Like I was like, what the hell am I doing here?
Right.
Like, these are legendary players. I went Division II. I went undrafted. I done snuck in here. Literally, I really felt like I snuck in the club and ain't nobody noticed it. Like
the bouncers didn't find you yet.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like I done ordered a drink and everything, and they done gave it to me, and I'm like, oh snap, they ain't even carded me. Like it was one of those type of things. And so I'm like, I'm gonna take advantage of this entire thing. Like I'm gonna keep going. I was joking with somebody like, you know, the Jaguars shirt. I'm like, yeah, I spent a week in Jacksonville, but I made sure I got a souvenir. So ultimately, that's what I kind of thought. I'm like, I'm in the league. Wow, this is crazy. But once I was like, okay, I got to actually get on the field and play.
No, I mean
it kind of grew. So like year two, I was like, okay, I'm in the league now.
Right.
So I was like really kind of starting to settle in a little bit, but things been a little bit different. But hey, it was still a dream.
The one thing that I regret more than anything else while you were here was lining you and Brandon Banks up and really getting this thing going, because both y'all were claiming to be the fastest Redskin at the time, and
we couldn't. Neither one of us could have afforded to pull a hamstring. I'll tell you that much. We were both 53 and 54. Oh, you know what I mean?
Like, no, I understand.
150 pounds, soaking wet, and like I thought it was a typo when he was at the combine. They were like, Brandon Banks, 145, and I was like, somebody messed up on the number. Well, he's got to be at least 150. And then I saw him in person. I was like, you are really a small guy, but he was so fast and like so shifty. He was like so dangerous returning the ball. With the ball in his hand, you see some clips and you're like, dang, he would have had another 2 or 3 touchdowns if it wasn't for a random holding penalty. You know that?
Yeah. I believe me, I do remember those. And it's funny because in talking with you, like some people have asked me, like, who does Anthony, who did he remind you of maybe from the current group of guys? And you know who it is? It's Terry. I've been saying this for a long time. Like, Terry legitimately runs a 4.340. That's what he ran at the combine. That's what he ran coming out of Ohio State. And not really until last year did you see, him playing fast, because the previous regime, we don't need to get into that disaster, but they were using him mainly underneath as a possession receiver. And I remember just saying to myself, Terry to me is a bigger version of Anthony Armstrong, who, when they would let him run down the field, you got your touchdowns by doing what? Taking the top off of a defense. Right. So do you ever look at Terry and look at how he runs, his route running and everything, and say to yourself that you do see some similarities?
The similarities I see is just the effort all the way around. It's just how he carries himself. Like, he could be a diva, but he's not. He's committed to this team. He's committed to that.
We are on radio,
I wanted to be there. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to do that type of thing too. But just the way he handles himself is big. The way that he goes up after the ball, I'd like to think that was strong at the catch point as well. It was one of those. I grew up watching Randy Moss. It was like, okay, I'm gonna go up and get the rock. Like, you throw it up, I'm gonna get it, and he does that. He's an all around player. He's much better than I was. He's got so much more to his game too. That him taking those the screen against Detroit
and taking it to the house,
taking that to the house. That was something that you hadn't seen in his game.
He did it against Philadelphia in an NFC Championship game. I know it was more of a 35-yarder, but it was a crossing route, and he got it, and he just beat a defender and took it to the house. And I think that's confidence too. Like, you could see each week with Terry, he started to believe, he already knew he was good, but now he started to see, I'm elite. I'm one of the top dogs in this league at doing that. And you know what this all stems from? Because he had a quarterback that could make all the throws.
I was just about to say it helps because look, I already know, like, when you and your quarterback are in sync, when they throw you the ball, you can just move fast because he's throwing it to a spot for a reason.
Yeah. Right?
He's leading me into open grass. If he's throwing it on my back shoulder, it's because somebody's going to knock me out. Right? Like, when you're in sync like that, things are beautiful. It's like cutting through butter.
Yeah.
So Jaden is smart. Like, I know that they got to communicate in that fact. Like, hey, I'm throwing it in front of you for a reason. Don't slow down on the shallow because there's nobody in front of you. I want you to hit it like a 200-yard dash. And they're in sync.
And the thing is, I'm just keep telling people, reminding people, that was just in the first year. So naturally, when people keep talking about the great receivers of the game, and I too, last year, I said, before the season started, that I'm challenging Terry to step his game up, take it to another level. And because I think he was capable of doing it. I hadn't thought it had been consistent at that point. Yeah, he had the 5 or 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons with a billion different quarterbacks throwing to him. So that's taking nothing away from him. But I mean, now that you have expectations, I wanted to see him take it to the next level, and he did. So now think of this year, though, another year with Jaden. Jaden's going to be a better quarterback this year because he's going to have a year under his belt having seen NFL defenses. And then think of the Deebo Samuel effect. Think of what that will do for Terry's game. You had Santana Moss, a legend, on the other side of you. Think of how coverages, adapted to Santana that could open up your game. So I think Terry's going to have less coverage always looking his way.
Yeah, early in the season they're gonna double cover Terry, and they're gonna say, "Show us what you can do, Deebo. Show us what you got, Michael Gallup, Jalen Lane." They're gonna put it on somebody else. Mm-hmm. But once they knock you upside the head, teams are gonna have to start to shift. I think Terry's gonna be looking more like a true X receiver now. He's gonna be able to get down the field more consistently. And then you still got some of these other guys that are gonna have some speed that'll be able to do some other things, but he's not going to have to run those short routes like he did before. He may not have as many receptions, Lake, but I think this is a 1,300-yard season because he's going to have more big plays, more 60-yard catches, 70-yard catches, things like that. So that's what I want to see out of Terry this year.
Folks, you're listening to the Lake Lewis Jr. Show, brought to you by Crossover Meats. I have former Washington Redskins wide receiver Anthony Armstrong on the line with me, breaking down the burgundy and gold and all the excitement that's surrounding this team right now. Just 2 weeks ago, it was they're going back to D.C. They're going to get this stadium. Then a couple of days after that, it was the draft is coming to Washington in 2027. Now it's, they're going over to Spain next year. So, this year. And then next year, they're probably going to be going over to France. So, all these great things. I asked our audience last week, I asked them what in their mind would constitute a failure of a season for the Commanders. So I want to ask you, as a former player who played for this team, you're in the media now, you're trying to take food off my plate in the media, but I do want to ask you, like, in your mind, Anthony, what to you would be a failure of a season? Would it be not to make the playoffs, not to get to the NFC Championship game where they were last year, or not to get to the Super Bowl and win it? What would you say?
I'm thinking it's at least divisional round.
Okay.
I need you to at least win one. And if you end up having that bye week, then okay, then we need to win that next one. But I would say at least divisional round would be where you got to at least get to, because you had room to grow. Mm-hmm. And this is a thing where I think they've made quality additions. And whereas they made you pause at the time, the way things are working out, I think they're very, very strategic. And Connerly going against Carter, and then having Trey Amos going to have to handle a whole lot of receivers in this division. So I think the team's improved on paper, but I think they got to look and say, hey, we're looking to go deep into the playoffs again. So I'd love it to be Super Bowl, obviously, but I think divisional round, if they don't make it that far, I'd be a little upset.
Okay, all right. So that is one step below from where they went last year. They went to the NFC Championship game last year. So some people are saying they have to get back to the NFC Championship game. But I'm trying to tell people, do you know how difficult that is to do that? And do it in consecutive seasons? That's even more difficult. That's almost unheard of.
Yeah, they had a lot of. there was a lot that just fell in. The Hail Mary game. There were so many things that just fell the right way for us. And you don't complain about that. You don't apologize. You just say, hey, that's the way the ball bounces. But, you can't go into the next season expecting to have all these last-minute heroics and things like that, because teams are now prepared for you.
So are you –
They know what you're doing.
Yeah, I was going to say, but are you in the mindset – because, some people keep throwing that at me. Man, they won 6 games at the end of the game last year. They're not going to do that again. And I'm thinking, well, why can't that just be who they are? Why can't that just be now in year 2? That's their DNA, that they're never out of a football game, because they've proved that 6 times last year.
Oh, yeah. No. I'm with that. I think that's their makeup. Keep the ball in their hands, and they're going to have it the last time, and they trust Jaden with it. Jaden we trust. That's got to be the mantra. But, in that same breath, the way that they found a way to win so many different ways last year, it's hard to replicate that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They were like, oh, man, if Jaden isn't going to do it, who's going to do it today? And then it ended up being a random person showed up, and then one day the defense showed up. That inconsistency will bite you in your behind, but I think the additions can help stabilize some of that. So maybe it's not so drastic where, hey, we need the defense to just hold it down for us until the offense gets going. Like, no, I don't think it's going to be like that. I think they have a better team overall.
Yeah,
right?
see, I feel like that too. I do. I think that they're going to have a better, like on paper, and then just the play is going to look more cohesive. I think the defensive play will be better, but I'm not sure the win-loss record, will be 12. And, I think the over-under for this team this year is 10.5. So that's a game and a half less, and you don't do half games. So technically it's almost 2 games less than what you're expecting them to win from what they won last year at 12. I think that's fair, actually. I think they're going to win, in my opinion. I think they win 11 or more games. But if they were to win, let's just say 11 games and still be in the playoffs, that's a successful season when you have a tougher schedule based off of what you did last year.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times I don't necessarily trip on the record because I need to qualify for the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'd like
just get in there.
My viewpoint is to how are you playing, right? Because you've seen those teams where they keep winning, but they sure do. They're limping into the playoffs type thing. Last year, Washington had an upward trajectory, and they had a late break that I think was helpful for them. So they had momentum, and everything was rolling in their favor. They were playing the right way. It ended up being 12 wins. And if it's 10 wins, but they're rolling into the playoffs with some good momentum, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and I think now when you look at what they've done in the draft with this year's class, it makes a lot of sense for them to get a tackle to go on, to be a bookend to go along with Laramie Tunsil to protect Jaden Daniels. And then also think about George Pickens going to Dallas. Now being traded to Dallas is to pair up with CeeDee Lamb. You don't think that Trey Amos, draft in the second round makes a lot of sense now? Obviously, Pickens went to Dallas after that. But nevertheless, now you have 2 physical corners to go up against some receivers that you're going to have to put a body on.
I mean, you got to think this is probably the most talented wide receiver division.
Yes.
I would say.
Yeah.
You go across A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Debo and Terry, now Pickens and Lamb.
Malik Neighbors.
The Giants got Neighbors,
yeah,
or whoever else they want to add. So you got to have some depth, right? They're going to find the mismatch, and that's the thing about offenses is that they can motion people around and get people in positions against lesser players. But if you have a lot of depth, now I feel much better with the top 3. We obviously got to see Trey get out there and play, but.
Yeah, he looked good, man. He
looked like a second rounder should.
Yeah, he looked impressive. He actually just looked like physically he looked impressive. Like he's not one of these thin guys. He literally
like he's supposed to be there.
Oh man, yeah, he was something. So
yeah, I heard some good things about him. I think he's a former quarterback. I think in the past too, or something along those lines. So.
Yeah,
he's a good player.
He did his thing.
That seems to be a characteristic that Peters favors.
Absolutely, they like size and again intelligent player. So you can't go wrong with that, folks. I'm talking with Anthony Armstrong. Was an intelligent player when he played here, but my friend, I got to get ready to wrap up, get you up out of here. But man, as always, I tried to let the listeners get a chance to understand that there's life after football, and you're doing quite well with yours. Just don't be trying to take my job, though, man.
Nah, man, I'm just trying to eat off whatever you scrape off the table, man. You got some crumbs left over, I'll take that.
Come on, cut it out. Well, look, tell the family I said what's up, and we'll be in touch. All right.
All right, man. Appreciate you. I'll talk to y'all. All
right. Look, Anthony Armstrong, he was a fan favorite when he was here. The fans really took a liking to him because, he's just a good dude. He really is. He's personable, made time for the fans, and they remember stuff like that. So whenever he comes to town to visit, it's amazing how many people still want to talk to him about his time here and, the run that he had, literally, like I said, coming off the street almost and, ascending to a starting job at wide receiver opposite Santana Moss, so that was good stuff there. And then, of course, Gabe Taylor a little bit earlier had him on, got some insight. We were having some technical issues, but we still got him on and got his his take on how he did, and he thought he performed well. And I'm telling you, I know he performed well. I was out there, I saw it, and I know the team felt the same way. So it'll be interesting to see if they do bring him on, if they do, offer him a chance to come back to camp, mini camp, a mini camp invite. So we'll see how all of that plays out. Look, crossover meets. I wanted to let everybody know before we got off, I was in Food Lion last week, and I got 2 things of crossover meat and, 2 boxes of it. And they have the beef with chicken, burgers. There's a mixture of them. And then they have the chicken and lamb. And I'm telling you, it's really good. This isn't just a sponsor that, they're just sponsoring. No, I mean, I eat their product, and I'm, kind of health conscious person right now. So if I will tell you the truth, you're going to get it. And these folks have a great product. So once again, you can find crossover meats at Giant Food, Giant, and Food Lion. And then, of course, if you want to subscribe to this podcast, I got to keep plugging that, folks, because a lot of people have been asking. Naturally, you can listen to it right here on WOL. 1450 AM and 95.9 FM in the DC, greater DC area as well. The signal travels super far, and, really excited about that because we've had a lot of people reaching out saying that they've been listening to the show and they love it. But you also can watch the show on YouTube, so you'll see what it's like here in studio, and a lot of people like that aspect as well. So we're trying to come to you in every possible way for you to be able to watch and listen to the program. And again, it's now an hour long. So we took this thing up today to an hour-long program. So greatly appreciate everybody out there for taking time out of your morning to check us out. If you're in the area, be careful out there today because it is rainy, it's slick out there. So just make sure you get back to me next week here at WOL at 11 a.m. Have a great day, everybody. Be safe.